Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Pocahontas in 1995. It's the 33rd Disney animated feature film, and it's directed by Eric Goldberg and Mike Gabriel. And basically, a year before The Hunchback of Notre Dame, which I reviewed maybe a couple of days ago. And yes, I thought that was a very good film. Quite an underrated film that, in the Renaissance period, of course, is a one that is known for Disney coming back. But Pocahontas is really, it's the one that, along with maybe, well, you could say this is the least popular of the Renaissance, period overall, and by quite a lot. It's got a 6.7 IMDb, and compared to The Lion King and stuff like that, wasn't seen as a box office kind of success, and but it's got some followers, but really critically, and commercially, and just with fans, really, it's not that popular. It's the one that I saw maybe a couple of times as a kid, purely because as well I didn't actually have the VHS, along with the other ones that I had, from a very, very young age, and then that one I got at another point, but I didn't watch it quite as much, and I know there was ones that I watched over and over that maybe overshadowed, ones like this, and it's I haven't seen it for over a decade though, so it was really a fresh experience for me, and I've seen. The only thing I've seen that is kind of to do this really officially is of course The New World by Terrence Malick. For me, that was a bit of a disappointing in Malick. For me, I do love Terrence Malick; he's one of my favourite directors. But so that's the only one really that I have seen of kind of Pocahontas recently. And this is kind of it's got similarities, but this is much more traditional in that sense. And 1995, great year for film, and so I didn't expect massive things, but I do remember liking it as a kid. I just didn't expect massive things, since it's not that acclaimed and everything, and it is quite hated on. And I went in, and basically very, very short, and of course it's about these Englishmen, and they go on on ships and everything, sail to the New World, and basically John Smith. Is in the film. He's really the main protagonist, along with Pocahontas. He's voiced by Mel Gibson. As well, you've got a character of Thomas, who's kind of he's this younger guy who kind of looks up to him. He is voiced by Christian Bale, who's also in the New World, which is weird. And yes, as well, you've got of course Captain Ratcliffe, who is the main villain of the film, and of course Pocahontas herself, who's voiced by Irene Bedard. Now, this film, it basically tells the story in its most traditional sense of Pocahontas. Once they get there, she forms a romance with John Smith, and basically, it's about, of course, the Englishmen and everything. They're coming in and they're kind of trying to take over and steal and take loads of gold and basically conquer their lands. This tribe, and basically, she falls in love with John Smith, of course, as one of them, that kind of sail in there. So it obviously creates loads of conflict and very, very complex issues there. And it just explores their love for one another. And as well, you've got little animals as well that are with them as well. Miko, I think it was, he played the small raccoon, one of my favourite kind of side character Disney animals in the film, really. And you've also got the little dog as well, who's from the side, of it's Ratcliffe's dog, and basically, yes, you've also got the grandmother of Pocahontas, who's basically this tree, this magical tree, and yes, this film, I think is a stunning film, and there's no denying that for me. I absolutely loved the film, and especially from the 20-minute mark onwards. I absolutely adored it. I thought it was magical, full of wonder. This is not, and the Hunchback of Notre Dame is, it's got these really, really dark, complex issues, and it does move, and it really does, tell a serious story. But it has unfortunately got some characters here and there that aren't that great, and ones, the gargoyles that do take away from the tone, and they're very annoying. In this film, you've got none of that. But really, this is a stunning film. I think it's great, actually. It tells a very, very touching story. One that's very uplifting, and it's got its moments of magic, and Alan Menken does the score to the film, and actually also helped with the actual songs, the writing for the songs in the film. Now, one of the first songs was not, absolutely great, but the rest of them I think were really something else. And the score to the film, is even better. It's just wonderful, whimsical, kind of really full of meaning, and really just I think this film, once Pocahontas and John Smith, get together, really, that's when it really becomes something, truly stunning. And I loved it. I think the first 20 minutes or so, not even that maybe, when they're on the boat and everything, they're travelling, and they first arrive on in the new world, you could say, and that's stuff that is good at times, very good, but not quite great. But really, as I say, 20 minutes on, yeah, it was all great, and it was just a wonderful film. I thought the visuals in this film were stunning. The animation really is something else. It's very, really, you compare it to some of the ones at the time of the Renaissance period. They went for a more simpler look of the humans in the film, you could say, but it really is effective. And Pocahontas herself, though, is really just wonderfully animated. The rest of them, they're more simplistic, but they are great the way they're animated. The surroundings, the trees, the nature, the river and everything, it's all wonderful. It's just truly magical. The use of colour in the film, and just how stunning this is to look at, it's just something else. And this was only on Sky, so when I do eventually buy it on Blu-ray, I think it's going to look even better. And of course, the score, the visuals are stunning, but the characters in this film are great as well. I think the writing is really wonderful, actually. There's moments in the script, dialogue, that's very, very meaningful. The life lessons as well that the tree kind of gives them, Pocahontas, and just the way that the characters are developed really are great. I think the character of Thomas is really, really good. Really liked his involvement, and very innocent character. Christian Bale was really good at the voice acting. Mel Gibson, as John Smith, is great. Really, really great voice acting here. And of course, Irene Bedard is great as well. I think the voice acting was great from really everyone. And just, it's a stunning film. I loved the romance in the film. I think it was just wonderfully done. It just very, very grounded. There was nothing over the top or anything unbelievable in the romance, but it was more fantastical as well at the same time, more whimsical. So it kind of was a perfect balance. They pulled it off wonderfully. I really got invested in the romance, and I just thought it was one of the best animated romances actually that I've seen. In terms of the core romance, not one of the best animated films. Like top 10 or top 20 maybe. But not far off that. I absolutely loved it. I think it was something special. Just as well the kind of emotional undercurrent and the way it kind of deals with the father-daughter relationship in the film and all the exposition that's given. It's a very, very short film, but as proven with animated films, it's quite easy to kind of give it an animated film, massive scope. The Lion King especially is only 80 something minutes, but it feels like a massive epic, and all the characters are given more development than most films. And this one, the characters are very, very well developed. At times just masterful actually, and I think all the kind of way that the power struggles and all the themes it deals with, and everything, just make for a very, very complex film, outside of the romance, and you've got great comedy in there as well, mainly added by the actual animals in the film, and some of the minor characters, that help out, that are on the ship and stuff, and you've got a really good villain, Ratcliffe. He's no Scar from The Lion King, but he is really, really good, and as well, great comedy in there. And just every act really, the first act I think, as I say, was very good, mostly good, because it didn't have all the great character interactions and everything that was in the second. Well, no, after that, after the 20-minute mark, but it was really good. After that, each act is perfect really, for what it is, and just something very, very touching, moving, just spiritual. That's what I would describe it as well. It really taps into that, and just there's just the spiritual feel to the film. It's just wonderful. Very, very, at one with itself, and I love the songs and everything. The way the visuals are in the songs, especially one in the centre of the film, which I won't get into, but that is just stunning. And just the songs in this film, again, they're not pointless, which is fine. In terms of, not pointless, but it's fine when animated films, loads of people complain, but I don't really care too much. When the songs themselves, if they're great, they don't have to, completely advance everything in a story. It's fine to have just spectacle and just great music and stuff and visuals. But in this film, they also at the same time simultaneously move all the characters, develop them, that are involved in the songs, and just advance the narrative overall, and just tie into everything perfectly. Really, they reveal things about the characters as well. They're just really, really good songs. The score, it's just wonderful by Menken. I think it's just beautiful and very, very atmospheric. This film really has a sense of wonder and portrayed perfectly. Fits in perfectly to the whole theme of discovery, self-discovery, and just discovery in terms of the Englishman kind of going in to this new world, and both as well the wonder in communication, of course, between the two sides, and that is really portrayed wonderfully between Pocahontas and John Smith, and it's just amazing, really, and the way that the two animals from two different sides, but they kind of as well they form friendship, and communicate different ways over the film. So you've got that, and as well you've just got a really, really wonderful ending that is very complex, and it's very, very powerful. But it's one that I wasn't disappointed with, because it really wrapped everything up, and it was very emotionally satisfying. Even if I didn't want that to necessarily to happen exactly like that, it's one that really brought everything together and gave off emotional payoffs at the end. The film for me is wonderful. I think it's one of the best of the Renaissance period, and just I didn't really have massive flaws at all with the film. Just the fact that the first 20 minutes, maybe a bit less, just weren't great, and just maybe one or two of the characters, side characters, weren't the most developed. But again, that flaw in that sense would really not affect the main, narrative and stuff, because all the main players really in the film are really, really well developed at times. For the most part, great development in the characters, and it's just a wonderful film. Very, very short, but still feels like a kind of adventure, but very, very meaningful, and something quite grand. It's a spectacle, the film, visually, and everything else, the score as well. It's just very, very epic, but very, very personal, story, and it ties in the big and the small scale perfectly, and really for the most part, and it's just a great film overall. I'd have to give it, it's between a 93 and a 94, and I'd have to give it a 94%, because even though the first kind of 20 minutes weren't great, they were still good / very good. And there's no flaws really, big flaws, other than it just didn't elevate early on. It didn't quite go the extra mile, and the rest of it was so stunning. Was so quite mind blowing at times. The visuals, just the actual emotion to the story, the way the characters, just the central relationships, and just wonderful. And it's very, very uplifting, but it's it's got its moments that really are very powerful, and you've just got a great film from me, a great animated film. Wow, for me this is underrated. I think it's even more underrated than The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and I prefer this to things like I'll say it now. For example, Hercules. This is much better for me, and of course Hercules is a lot more popular. But this one, it's put into perspective. Very, very underrated, and not the worst, or one of the worst of the Renaissance. I think it's one of the best, and it's just a shame that this isn't that popular. But you know, I really recommend it if you've not seen it, because it's the one that maybe everyone hasn't seen. And yeah, I just think 94% for me, very very high, extremely high. Absolutely love the film, and yeah, I just think would highly recommend it. You know, it's very very. You know, maybe I can understand. You know, it's not quite as centered towards kids as much as some of the Renaissance films are. You know, it's not aside from the actual animals and stuff, and some other things here and there. It's more of a an adult story, you could say, but that doesn't obviously affect it because you know I loved adult films as a kid, but I can see general audience maybe how not every kid is gonna maybe love this film as much as a lot of the other ones, but watching it now as an adult, I suppose, and knowing everything about the kind of Pocahontas story, really. And actually watching it now, it really is one of the best of the Renaissance. And yeah, it's very very much more mature, serious, take on things. But it's a magical film, wonderful animation, and stunning score and everything like that, and a wonderful set of characters and narrative. So there we have it. Thanks for watching my review of Pocahontas.